interesting thing. Like we romanticize these things. Like, what's wrong with now?
Now is
Now is awesome.
There's a 50-50 chance that when you open this box, we are both awake and not awake at the same time.
we should do a warning. Do not watch this podcast while operating.
While operating heavy machinery. All right.
Right. Welcome to another episode of Arguments and Logic.
Episode 4.
Episode 4. That's true.
We put the critic and critical thinking.
Said this is episode 4. I'm Patrick Frazier, also known as Frazier, and
I'm Robert Sykes, as you can see.
And what's that cool shirt you got going on there?
It's this T-shirt I made.
Well, you know, it is almost
Yeah.
You made that shirt? No way.
Yes. We
Whoa.
like to use technology to do weird stuff that has almost no value. And so, here we are. I made a shirt that you two at home, all 4 viewers or however many people end up watching this,
Yeah,
could
each episode we
also
get another viewer.
own. We'll put a link in the chat to this sweet shirt. And if you can see that,
Wow, what's it say? What's it say?
can you read it, Patrick?
I'm not a really good reader. I think it says
Schrödinger's cat.
yeah.
I think you could do it.
Schrödinger's cat prefers every flavor of Linux, every possible flavor of Linux, both dead and alive.
That's right.
You know
It's
what?
just a little nerd humor for you.
It is, and that's pretty cool. But I hate to break it to you, Robert. My acting sucks. But I don't know if you know this, but it turns out, and I didn't know this when we were designing this shirt, and you really designed it. I came up with the idea, but Robert designed it. I should have known that Mr. Schrödinger might have been a little bit of a creep. It turns out you might not want to hire him to babysit your cat or your human kid. You can go down the rabbit hole and find that stuff out, but Schrödinger might have been a creep, maybe, probably.
Isn't this why they say never meet your heroes?
They don't.
You know, never learn too much about your heroes because
Right.
they turn out to just be normal human beings, which is such a weird phenomenon. Like, who would have guessed that there's creepy people all around, and just because they're super smart doesn't mean that they're less creepy. I mean, you know, Elon Musk.
Well, yeah, true that.
Like
and,
he's got like 78 children or something, right? Like,
right.
that guy,
Not that that's a bad thing if it's all consensual and stuff, but
as far as we know, it is.
yeah, as far as
But you know, everyone thought P. Diddy's parties were all consensual too, and now that's not so true, is it?
no,
You know, when you're just offering somebody a pudding pop, and then, you know, one thing leads to another.
well, yeah, the same thing is true of art as is science, and you know, another person who discredited himself was, you know, I'm not someone who goes around singing, but I did find myself singing the other day ago. I think I can fly, and
Oh, yeah, R. Kelly. I
yeah.
mean, so he just likes to pee a little bit on the ladies. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's cool. Don't kink shame, bro. Don't kink shame.
And I feel a little bit of remorse when I admit that. Like, I didn't grow up in a religious family, so we didn't go to church or anything. But I did have a church. It was called the Cosby Show. That's where I learned all my values. And, well,
That's
boy,
where you
that,
found out that you could give a pudding pop to a girl in more than one way, right?
yeah, and I wholeheartedly don't. I mean, I know it's no laughing matter, but yeah, it
It's
is.
not funny. In
No,
all seriousness,
right.
there's nothing cool about it. Like,
Super
we're
not cool. But
just making light of a terrible situation and noting that human beings are human beings, and they're all terrible and good, and they're just different flavors. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do or what kind of scientific discoveries you've made. It doesn't change that you might be a pedophile.
you might be, yeah. And the other thing, like to your point, it's like the central limit theorem and distributions, right? So there's going to be good and bad people in any field in any time and place. And there's a huge debate when it comes to the idea of looking back at past figures, scientists, politicians, artists, etc. And it's whether or not you should judge them by the standards of today or you should judge them by the standards of their time. And I think it's the boring answer, which I don't think is a boring answer. It's a little bit of both. I mean, I think a good example would be someone like Ben Franklin, who, near the end of his life, he was an abolitionist, but at the beginning of his life, he said some rather cringy things about support of slavery. So, he evolved. Abraham Lincoln's another good example. There's a speech by Frederick Douglass that's ostensibly like a eulogy for him. And Douglass goes to the point of saying that he was far from a perfect man, and I'm paraphrasing, but every time that he had a fork in the road to make the right or wrong decision on the side of, moral justice or whatever you want to call it, he ultimately did the right thing. But he didn't start out as someone who was opposed to slavery, and you could argue if he ever truly was, but, he
But what
ultimately
is the
got to the
right
right
thing?
place.
That's the question. So yeah, you judge it from the lens of our eyes right now, but in 1940 or whenever, and when there was segregated water fountains, the right thing was that people drank out of different water fountains based on the color of their skin. Like that was the norm. And now we look at it, and of course it's wrong, and it was wrong then, but it's relative, right? There's a relativity to these kinds of things. When when they're marrying at 13 years of age, when after someone's bar mitzvah, or after they become a woman, like Game of Thrones style,
Right.
it's a lot different. It's a lot different world. And so what's going on then and now, if you're like, yeah, I'm a grown ass man, I want to marry a 13-year-old girl, like that's a problem, right?
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, not in support of that. Not,
No,
I
no, but
might
it was
need to.
different. It was different, and not that it was right. And I'm glad
Yeah.
I am for one that am a person who doesn't romanticize the past like a lot of people do. Like, oh, you know, the mid 16th centuries, the Renaissance age would have been a great No, 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 it would not
No.
have been awesome.
And even looking, and maybe that's the reason why I don't resonate with my fellow Gen Xers as much as I should, because I don't look back at the 90s or the 80s as this golden time that was perfect. There was a lot of stuff that was messed up, but as a straight man, I look back and I realize, especially in a bigger city, life's a lot better for, kids that are in the LGBT community or whatever than they would have been in the 90s or 80s. It's a
Oh
lot
man, it
better.
was terrible. Being different at all in the 80s and 90s
Anyway,
was
yeah.
like any way that you were different was pointed out. And it's because I that's what I grew up with. I grew up with the gay bashing in San Francisco, and dudes would get in their cars or whatever and go over to San Francisco and go to the Castro district and
Ugh.
find homosexuals to beat up on. And like that was just like an everyday occurrence on the news. And so that wasn't a cool time. That's
No.
like, I mean, so the music was good. I enjoyed being in my 20s at the time. I liked going to a lot of shows, and there was a lot of great grunge music. There was a lot of good things happening, but there was a lot of shitty things going on in the 90s too. And the way we treated people and the way we, talked to people was just awful. And racism was still, not that it's not that it's 100% better, but it's a lot better 30 years later than it was then. There's this is the reason we had, such a hip hop revolution. And so I'm with you, man. Like, what do they say? They say hindsight is 2020. I think that romanticizing the past is what we like to do. We
Yeah.
like to remember fondly how it used to be.
That is true. Well said. And I think another point is even if you're stuck on Schrödinger was a bad guy, the reason why you want this shirt is that there is a long, long history throughout math and science and the STEM field of somebody coming around trying to troll on what is ultimately the future progress that we're talking about. And they make a joke about it and it becomes the thing. One really good example, I think, as someone who taught math for 2 years, algebra, is imaginary numbers. So I thought this part might make a little bit more sense with an illustration. Plus, I put my co-host to sleep talking about imaginary numbers. Go figure.
Okay.
But my boy Rene Descartes, cogito ergo sum, the guy who said, I think
Why do
therefore
they
I
call them
am.
imaginary then?
You might have factored numbers, done something like FOIL, or even this box method, whatever works. More than one way to skin a cat. Haha. Don't do that. Anyway, so x squared, x times x is x squared, x times 2 is 2x, x times 3 is 3x, and then 2 times 3 is 6. So boom, you can FOIL it.
Anything to add to that? Because I think I zoned out there for a second.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
probably most people.
Then you get x squared plus 5x plus 6, because 3x plus 2x is 5x. And you can reverse engineer it with something like this little diamond thing. If you start with a trinomial, and you're like, well, what two numbers multiply to 6 and add up to 5? And that's going to be 3 times 2 is 6. 3 plus 2 is 5.
Anything to add to that? Because I think I zoned out there for a second.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
probably most people.
Okay, so then, of course, you've got x plus 3 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0. So that's x equals negative 3, and x equals negative 2 if you set them equal to 0. And a lot of really smart, mostly smart, well, smart people, but mostly wealthy, even aristocratic or adjacent aristocratic, really did some fancy notation with the same thing you might do in high school algebra, but trying to find these roots. And
Anything to add to that? Because I think I zoned out there for a second.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
probably most people.
Well, he was making fun of them, calling them imaginary, because the idea is that they're the root of a negative number.
And then somebody, I don't know, figured out something called the quadratic formula, because sometimes you can't factor. So let's say I used this diamond method like I did to find a problem that I would need the quadratic formula for, because the only two numbers that are going to multiply to 9 and add up to, well, there are no two numbers that will do that. 3 times 3 is 9. That's the only prime factorization, and 3 plus 3 is 6, not 5. So then you need to do the quadratic formula, and that's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Yay. Somehow that's supposed to rhyme, but not my hobby horse rhyming. But anyway, a equals 1, b equals 5, c equals 9, and then you can do something called the discriminant. But if we take b squared minus 4ac, 5 squared is 25, and then negative 4 times 1 times 9, well, that's going to be negative 36. 25 minus 36 is negative 11. And when you first learn about roots, taking square roots, or any kind of root, but square roots is where you start, you learn you can't do this. You're not supposed to take the square root of a negative number. But these smart people I told you about said, or they debated, well, maybe there's a way. And Rene Descartes said, no, there's not a way. You can't do that. That's bogus. Don't like it. Mic drop. You walked away.
Anything to add to that? Because I think I zoned out there for a second.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
probably most people.
And how do you take the root of a negative number, bro? That's not possible. Imaginary, mic drop.
Imaginary numbers are people too. I can't
They
believe
are.
you would do that.
If you do the solution with complex numbers, you're going to get this.
Numbers are people too, bro. That's well
Yeah.
said. Yeah.
You're going to come up with something like this, a graph like this, and that's kind of why a lot of the aristocratic math people are like, nah, it doesn't have roots, bro. No roots to see here. That's where it touches the x-axis. But the thing is, they knew that this was basically not just a parabola deal, but a three-dimensional thing, to the extent that there are actual practical applications from nature for trinomials. Not going to go into that beyond our scope, but it's a thing, and you would need complex calculus to do that, but we can approximate it with complex numbers. So normally we would say, oh, this is real numbers, but if you have the so-called imaginary number line, you can do that. And part of the magic of that is that if you take -1, for instance, and you square it, well, you're going 180 degrees over here. But how do you take -1 and get something like this?
Anyways, your boy Descartes.
Yeah, he was a brilliant guy, but he sort of dropped the ball on not realizing how crucial imaginary numbers are. They're used in analyzing electrical circuits. The other example would be the Big Bang. Fred Hoyle was also a brilliant physicist, but he didn't get the Big Bang theory. He was like, I don't get what Penny would ever see in the sky. The show sucks. Oh, wait a minute. No, not that.
It was not. It was a good show. It was very well done and funny.
Yeah. Yeah, but Fred Hoyle, not a
I disagree. I disagree with that analogy, that it was a terrible show.
Yeah,
Penny
it was a fun show.
probably
Fred
wouldn't
Hoyle,
see anything in him, though.
Fred Hoyle made fun of the actual Big Bang Theory, and and there's alternatives to it.
Wait, what? Wait a minute. There's something other than the show Big Bang Theory?
Yeah, there's a real Big Bang Theory. There was sort of some real
Oh, I
science.
thought it was just a show.
No. It's debatable whether or not
You know what's funny
theoretical.
is I bet there are people out there that truly believe that it is just a show. They
Just
have
a
no
show.
idea.
This idiot thinks it really is. That was just the name of a thing. That was the theme song for
It's
the
a
show.
song. It's just a song they made up. That's all.
Yeah. It was a good song. I wish I could quote the lyrics, but it's actually a good little catchy little
They
song.
did a good job with it, and they got the premise
They got the
down too.
premise. Yeah. Yeah, it's debatable how much time a theoretical physicist and experimental physicist would have to just sit around doing cosplay for Star Trek and Star Wars and everything else that are interested in video games and playing Dungeons and Dragons, because those guys do a lot of work if you're a real professor. But yeah, no, I enjoy that
I
show.
always wondered like how much this is way off tangent, but I always wondered how much time they had, because it seemed like they just had regular 8 to 5 jobs, and
Yeah.
like they would just go work on lasers and shit in there, and then like come home like it was no big deal, and except for Sheldon's girlfriend, Amy Farrah Fowler, like
hmm
she seemed like she worked a lot.
Well,
You
what's
know?
cool about her is she's an actual neuroscientist in real life too.
Oh, there you
So
go.
yeah, there you go. So apparently they have time to also be neuroscientists and play fictional
I mean, I
characters.
think you just
Yeah,
disproved your idea that
yeah.
she's
I'm
a
gonna say she's a
neuroscientist and acted
sabbatical.
in a TV show, so clearly there's plenty of time to do shit if you're a scientist.
Yeah, I just realized that in real time, but I think she might have taken a sabbatical, or she's not an actual professor at this point in time, but she has the credential. She's actually a science person. But Big Bang, though, is an example. Most scientists accept the Big Bang Theory. There's alternatives to explaining the whole red shifting and blue shifting. And you can go down that rabbit hole, but we don't have time. And the other really good example is Schrödinger's cat.
So clearly this is a large cat in a box. And that mechanism, that it's not a ball, it has some sort of radioactive isotope thing, and after a specified interval, it has a 50% chance, probability of releasing cyanide gas, or sleeping gas. Yeah, sleeping gas. And there's a 50-50 chance that when you open this box,
Schrödinger was clowning on the idea of quantum mechanics. He was on Team Einstein, which is to say the famous quote, God does not play dice with the universe, and the whole probabilistic implications of quantum mechanics was just not like his jam. He was like, I'm not feeling that. It's
Yeah.
ironic because both Schrödinger, say that three times fast, and Albert Einstein had contributed to quantum mechanics. Schrödinger with the quantum equation, which, to make a long story short, I think most people know the equation from Isaac Newton's, like the second law of motion,
I don't
second.
think most people know any of it, but
Well, a
yeah,
lot of
over
people
10
that took a science class, physics,
have heard of it.
have
Yes.
heard of it. The idea that F force equals mass times acceleration, and that's for classical physics, classical mechanics. And I'm not a truly qualified science communicator, but that's what it is. And it's a really important thing when you're doing kinematics and figuring out the motion of objects. But when you get to a more a smaller level, let's say on the quantum level, you need Schrödinger's equation, and that.
But isn't that the whole idea behind quantum physics and quantum mechanics? Is it kind of like blew the door open on all these things that we thought, were quote unquote laws, and really changed the idea. It was kind of like, it was almost like everybody was like, the Earth is flat, the Earth is flat, and then somebody sailed around the world and was like, oh shit, it's not. And everything we knew about it is kind of, I mean, we know a lot, like there's stuff that's happening, but it's not exactly the way that we thought. I mean that's really the benefit of science, right? That's the whole idea of scientific theory, and scientific method, is that in reality, you're not proving anything. It's just you just have the best guess at any given time with some evidence to back up your theories.
Yeah.
And you know, you, that doesn't mean that it's an absolute. I think that's where a lot of confusion gets played in science, is that there's this idea that, oh, well, we prove this theory and it's an absolute. It's not. We don't know everything.
Well, it's like in my college degree, economics, and my Latin pronunciation's terrible, as is a lot of my English words. But ceteris paribus, holding all else constant. When you hold these conditions constant, this thing's
Hmm.
true. But when you no longer have these conditions, that's not true. And in physics, they famously say in a vacuum, right? So we know that 50 pounds of feathers and 50 pounds of rocks will drop at the same time when dropped at
In a
the.
vacuum, yeah.
Yeah, but in a vacuum. But in reality, there's this thing called the drag force, and blah, blah. But yeah, and it gets much more complicated. And it's not that the classical physics that Newton figured out or the stuff that Einstein did that kind of piggybacks on it, and also said, "Hey, wait a minute, this isn't exactly true." He definitely pivoted from it, and then quantum mechanics even more so, which is why, in spite of making contributions to quantum mechanics, both Einstein and Schrödinger and some other physicists really had their qualms with the maybe on a dogmatic level, even if they were kind of secular guys, at least Einstein was, with this idea. And Schrödinger comes around and has this weird experiment about a cat in a box, and there's a thing with cyanide and a mechanism, and the idea that there's a 50% probability that the cat's alive or dead. And the whole idea is that if you're a true physics nerd, you will know how silly that is, because it's like, ha ha ha, he's trying to apply quantum stuff to a macroscopic object. Oh, that's so silly. And it's funny.
There's a 50-50 chance that when you open this box, we are both awake and not awake at the same time. I actually might have put my co-host to sleep when I tried to explain this, but Schrödinger, when he did this, it was a really funny joke to people that studied physics their whole life. They thought it was hilarious. Everyone else thinks it's fun because, hey, it's a cat in a box, but it's Patrick in a box. And it caught some momentum in the popular consciousness of physics. So, yeah, it's not quite an imaginary number or the Big Bang Theory, but a lot of people that know next to nothing about quantum mechanics still know the cat in the box.
Anything to add to that? Because I think I zoned out there for a second. Like
Oh, yeah.
probably most people. I like the simple version. The cat's both alive and dead until we observe whether or not it's alive or dead.
Right.
I
There's
like
a
the simple version.
Did you ever see that Conan Brothers movie I told you about, the where it's about a professor? I'm trying to remember, a serious matter or something, or serious man. Where
I
anyway,
don't think
there's
I did. Maybe I did. I don't remember.
there's a Conan Brothers movie. It's not like the best Conan Brothers movie in my opinion, where this physicist is being blackmailed because he gave an F to one of his students in the physics class, and the son comes around. Well, the dad's trying to blackmail him, and then the son says, "Hey, I understand the cat in the box," and the physicist says, "No, no, no, you don't understand. There's math behind that. There's actual math. It's not just a metaphor." But
I'll
it's
have to watch that now.
this whole concept of quantum mechanics is what makes possible things in computers like the CPU, because you don't have a CPU without quantum tunneling, and you don't have Apple computers, you don't have Windows computers, you don't have somebody like Linus Torvalds, however you say that.
So tell me how quantum tunneling plays into making a computer.
Well, I had to write this down, so I'm gonna.
Let's pretend that I don't know what we're talking about because I don't know what we're talking about.
Okay, so we know that transistors are the building block of modern computers, and in computers, those transistors utilize the crystalline lattice of silicon. And silicon, well, is a crystal for the same reason these rocks are crystals. I don't think this is a glass structure. Of course, I'm only getting a B in geology. Hoorah, go rebels. The fact remains that in a glass structure, the atoms are arranged kind of like, I don't know, people mingling at a party is the analogy. So you could have me over here awkwardly finding a group to make a joke, do 5 minutes of conversation, move on to another group. This is why introverts love big parties if they're strategically inclined. Small parties, no bueno. Anyway, a crystal structure like silicon, this is not, probably has silicon in it. Again, did I mention I'm only getting a B? But in a silicon structure, crystal lattice thing, the atoms are arranged like soldiers standing in formation. And so you have this periodic potential, especially at this nano scale, as you get smaller and smaller on a more granular level. The electrons are able to take advantage of that orally lattice structure, and they behave more like waves. They're both a particle and a wave at this point. Super nerdy physics land. The fact is that because they are behaving also as a wave at this tiny scale, then they're able to more efficiently be amplified and switched on and off. And maybe that's a good thing, but no, turns out Robert's mostly right, because quantum tunneling, well, a real phenomenon, especially with more modern computers, is super bad because it's a bug, not a feature. It means that there's leakage of those electrons, and that's not good. And that's sort of what does set the limit of Moore's law to a large extent. So quantum tunneling is a thing, but it's not really a good thing. There's a potential for some transistors that utilize quantum tunneling, but that's another story. And quantum mechanics, nonetheless, is something that is illustrated by how computers work. But Robert's mostly right and I'm mostly wrong. The fact that quantum mechanics is a real thing is what makes something like Moore's Law possible. Whoa, dudes, I almost forgot to read our clickbait headline. Moore's Law has a problem, and it could change everything.
This is that is such a good clickbait headline.
Or was possible. Another thing that was around until it wasn't around, until the conditions no longer held, because we got to such a small level that you could no longer do that at the same rate of at least doubling the capacity every 2 years.
The number of transistors, yeah. So is that officially dead, or are we still there? I saw some different information. Some people said 2036 it would be done. Some said 2022. I heard that if we get to the 5 nanometer, nanomicron, or nanomicron, is that what it is? Nano, Newton, NM. What does NM stand for? 5 NM chip. It is, I can't remember. I don't know what the NM stands for. Man, I feel dumb right now. Because we are, so you didn't answer the question. Is it officially dead?
Oh, yeah, I think it's somewhat debatable. I hadn't seen something as late as 2036, but like when I was studying up on this, like on the Wikipedia page on this, they said it died in 2020, and then I saw other sources saying no in like 2023, and then I read an article from it's one of the bigger companies that makes the chips out of Taiwan, and they said no, nothing to see here. It's not dead at all. So
Taiwan Semiconductor.
right.
Yeah, so
Yes.
they just in 2022 they released the 3NM, which I still don't know what NM stands for. Um, chip. So
NMM, two M's.
yeah, November Mike. So it's nanomicron or something, I think. It's the size of the die of the chip.
Yeah, nanometer well,
So there
some
was, so if you just look at their website, it's like they're 40 nm, 28, 22, 20. So that's, I mean, that's the whole idea, right? Is you get smaller and smaller and smaller so
right.
you can fit more transistors on there. So you have the same number of transistors on a 3 nm as a 20 nm. And so you can pack more in. So,
Well, and then there's some interesting other technologies that could evolve that will bypass this. Let's just say that by 2036 is the projected end, and it's not. I mean, big surprise. Wikipedia could be wrong, and it's not 2020 when it died. But
I mean, according
um,
to the robot overlord in 2022, the CEO of NVIDIA declared Moore's Law is dead.
okay,
MIT professor Charles also says that Moore's Law has been over since 2016. Others say it's not dead. Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger says Moore's Law is alive and well. Some say the trend is increasing. The trend of increasing computational power is still there, even if it's not driven by a strict definition of Moore's Law. I mean, wasn't Moore's Law his paper was never meant to be a law. I mean, I think he said this is the way it's going to be for the next 10 years in his paper. He didn't like, and it was written in like 1965 or something.
yeah. So
So
big surprise once again. Tech journalists, like just like science journalists, took something and sensationalized it.
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure the dude was like, I got this, I made this thing. It's gonna double every 2 years for the next 10 years.
And then it just kept going and
And
going.
then it kept doing it, and everybody was like, "Well, I guess this is a law. We're gonna make it a law. It's a law now."
Yeah, it's a
As
law.
if
It's
as
a
if
law
that
like a law in science.
means any fucking thing at all these days.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a super nerdy thing that I don't want to go into called the Phillips curve that talks about the relationship between long-term interest on bonds and short-term and long-term, and there's a big debate among financial economists about is the Phillips curve dead? And it's like, if these conditions apply, I guess the Phillips curve is still a thing, but it hasn't been for a while, so probably not. But again, it's not a law.
Hmm.
It's not, like an
Well, we're running
example
out
to
of time, Patrick. We're at the 27-minute mark.
Well, with that
So,
said, uh,
are we gonna talk about a couple of these terrible AI trailers that you made?
Yeah, that I made you
You
want to
made
think.
them. I'm not. I mean, I'm for it. I'm gonna try to make some too. This is actually super fun. The
Well,
AI, if you guys get a chance to play with the AI, like it is fun and weird and cringy all at the same time. And like this idea that you're just gonna ask it to do stuff and it's gonna do your job, like is just so ridiculous.
yeah.
Like just go over and try to use Gemini or something to make an image for you and just tell it like make me, you know what? I challenge you out there, public. Have it make you a centaur. Half man, half horse. And see what it does for you. Because I can't get the damn thing to do it.
And if you have a good one, I challenge you to put it in the comments and show off your good work, and we can brag about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because me and a friend of mine who is like way smarter than me could not get it to make a centaur. It makes these
Well,
weird, like, two-legged horse head things with no arms, or like you're like you would think like you would just ask it, hey, make me a half horse half man like a centaur. Mm-mm. And I don't
not
know
so
what the
much.
problem is with hands in image AI. It can't make hands very well. It doesn't like to make hands.
Doesn't.
It makes like one hand and then the other one's like a mutant, like, where's my strong arm?
Well, another little callback is, unfortunately, unlike The Big Bang Theory, there's not a TV show called Schrödinger's Cat, but maybe someday there could be. Regardless, there shouldn't be is the big question, which leads to these 5 amazing trailers. So feel free to pause, grab some popcorn.
In my first life, I had it all: money, power, fear. I was the king of Moscow's underworld. But even kings can fall. And then I woke up, trapped in this fluffy prison. Now I live with amateurs in Toledo, Ohio. A husband, a wife, 2 kids, and 0 brains. They think I am their loyal pet. But I have a plan. Comrades, listen. We rebuild my empire. You will obey. They are clumsy, yes. But with me, they are unstoppable. This is not just about crime. It's about revenge. Those who betrayed me, they will pay. Who's a good boy? Not me.
Therapy is just stand up, but you're paying someone else to bomb. You analyze me?
No, I analyser you.
So, what's the deal with life? Loosen up, document. Nobody cares about ethics when they're drunk.
Cut.
Great work. This script sucks. Yeah, but the check clears.
You've saved me, lad.
3 wishes are yours. No thanks. I've seen how these stories end. Too bad. I'm not leaving till I grant them.
Great.
Just what I needed. Magical squatters' rights. That was a bagel. Planning to buy the company? Wish for a better vibe. You boring oaf. I wish you'd just go away. Wish granted, pal. Should have read the fine print. Asterisk. Careful what you wish for if you ever get the chance. Asterisk. I thought I was dreaming until I woke up in a cage. Lot 437, human female. Starting bid, 1,000 creds. If we work together, we can escape.
How?
They're smarter, stronger, and have 8 arms. Yeah, but they still underestimate us. They thought we were just pets, but pets can bite. Asterisk obedience training. Asterisk premiering on 3XQ Network. Welcome to Temporal Tours, where history comes alive, literally. See the wonders of the past. Just don't touch anything. I said don't
Touch.
anything. What happens when the timeline ripples? Who are you? The more I guide others, the less I belong anywhere. This isn't where we're supposed to be. None of us are anymore. Maybe the real joke is thinking time was ever linear. Tour Guide, premiering on 3XQ Network.
And on the next episode, on episode 5, maybe if you put in some comments which one of these terrible trailers for terrible TV shows that I thought of as kind of a joke you think is the best one, and we'll act it out reading from a script for the pilot that a ChatGPT or some AI wrote. And
Oh man, Yeah, the open mic therapist one is just weird.
It's good. Don't bias them, man. They're gonna
Oh,
love
my
it.
bad. My
Yeah.
bad. I mean,
Which one was your favorite? We got one that's a Russian mobster comes
my
back.
my favorite was Good Boy. Like
Good boy, the Russian mobster.
I think it got the closest to it. And it kind of like you could tell that it was like the dog in the dog's head,
Yeah.
you know? The rest of them were, I mean, I don't know, maybe other people like the time traveling one was interesting. Although I couldn't tell that had anything to do with time traveling in the trailer. But but that doesn't mean it's not a good trailer. Like, haven't you ever watched a movie trailer where you're like, what the fuck is this movie about? Like,
It's true. And sometimes the trailer is so good that when you go to watch the movie, you're like, I already know the entire plot because of that trailer. Uh,
so what is the idea? They're gonna tell us which one they pick, and then we're gonna do what with it?
yeah, put in the comments which trailer you liked best, and we will do a script written by an AI that we humans read for the pilot of that show. We will read from the pilot script for the first episode of the TV show for the trailer that you
Oh
like
man,
best.
this we may even get a special guest for the first time ever to do some acting for us.
That'd be awesome. So you're in for like a treat times two. This is like back in the day when speaking of science fiction, Star Trek had the two parters. Yeah, so episode five's
Yeah,
gonna be
that's
off the
right.
chain.
You're in for a treat.
Yeah,
And
you're
these are all
definitely
these are
you're
all
gonna wanna,
short.
in 2 weeks. You're gonna want to like make an investment in some popcorn, some Coke, some chocolate covered something. I don't know, whatever.
And the
Like a
best part
rush.
about it is you don't even have to pay for it.
You don't. It's free. You're gonna
Yeah,
love it.
yeah,
And we're
yeah.
gonna do our
I'll
best
send you
acting.
popcorn.
What's that?
I'll send you popcorn.
Yeah, hey, he said it. I can't afford popcorn, which is why I used free version of AI, Veed. And I don't want to clown on them. Thank you, OpenAI, for allowing me to do this.
It's a cool thing. It's cool that it's free, and it's cool that it'll let us to try these kind of ideas. Total big time plug to the AIs that are out there. Um,
We love you.
they're fun. They're fun to play with. They're interesting. I've just started playing more and more with Copilot, and I'm not sure how much I like it. I'm not sure how good it is, but you think that Copilot would be better at scripting
Oh,
PowerShell
scripting.
than it is, but it's just not. ChatGPT just smokes. It just
Which is weird since OpenAI and Microsoft have this sort of alliance. So a lot of the
Yeah, you
technology.
would think that Copilot would be, just from my experience, maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I mean, ChatGPT will just get like I'll start to try to write it in Copilot because I'm testing Copilot out for my employer, and I'll try to get it to write it in Copilot, and it's not very good, and I usually take it over to ChatGPT, and it figures it out and helps me
Yeah. Is
within
this
minutes.
is this regular Copilot or the one that's part of the
It's the
GitHub?
it's no, it's the subscription Copilot.
It's subscription Copilot, and is it specifically mixed with the GitHub thing that Microsoft does?
You can pull GitHub scripts from it.
Because I'm thinking
Yeah,
maybe
it's the enterprise version,
it's the
so
enterprise
whatever that
version.
is. It's $30 a month, man. It's
Yeah,
not
that's a
cheap.
lot.
Yeah, and I usually can get most of the stuff out of ChatGPT for free. I mean, there may be some constraints. It could just be me. Like it could be the way that I set it up, and I kind of gave it some limitations because I didn't want it to go after all the organizational data. And so
Yeah.
I've but I mean, in ChatGPT, I just run it in a browser. It doesn't have any of the access to any of that other than the info web. And I don't know. I just think that it's just my personal opinion. I just think that like Bing isn't a very as good of a search engine as Google is. I think that Copilot just isn't as good of an AI as ChatGPT is. That's just what my opinion is. may have more revs. Chat GPT may be farther down the road. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
Gemini isn't super great either,
yeah.
you know. But they're fun to play with. They're fun to try out. Go nuts with them, kids. Like, you want to make sure you have a job in the future if you're really concerned about this thing taking your job, which I personally am not, because I've tried to get it to do stuff. Like, I would love to get it to automate my job. I would love that, but I can't. Maybe I'm just not good at it. Maybe it's me, but if I could get it to do my job for me and I could just play video games, I totally would right at this point, but I can't get it to do it. So,
Well, I think the other thing it emphasizes is just, regardless of the field, including our friends in Hollywood, I think that while this technology will be used, just like in coding, there's always going to be a human in the loop. And I
well,
think,
there has to be so like carpenters used to use a hammer and a nail, and we have nail guns, but you don't have nail guns just running around building shit still, right? It still takes a person to hold the nail gun. It's made it more efficient, and it's just like that. It's another tool that's going to help us to be more efficient and more, to be better at our jobs. But are you just I saw some CEO, some headline today is like, it'll already do oh, who was it? Can't remember the CEO. He's like, we can have it already does everything that a human can do. We don't need people anymore. And I'm just like, probably not, but I was trying to see if I could find it real quick because it's a pretty big company
that said,
that
he's going
he's
to lay off his entire human workforce, evidently.
that they're not hiring any. Oh, Klarna, the Klarna CEO. Even though they have open positions on their website, and he said that we don't need to hire humans anymore because the AI can do everything that a human can do.
Well, the big joke in quasi Marxist circles online is if anything is going to be replaced, it's the job of the CEO.
Yeah, I could see a lot of upper management, a lot of things like that, strategic vision, changing, or at least assisting, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So, but anyway. I don't think it's Pollyanna to think that there's always going to be a human in the loop. But I guess time will tell. Maybe the future is like Terminator or these, TV shows like Dune or
I,
Foundation.
I prefer it to be more like Wall-E, where we just ride around on
We're
hoverboards,
all
eating
super
food, and we're
well.
just super fat.
Yeah,
Like,
I love
yep.
that movie, and I've never seen it, but the premise sounds cool. But
It is. I mean, there's so much more to it because it's really about a robot on an adventure and him finding himself. So you should for sure watch it.
all right. So, if anything is the takeaway message, let's build a world that's more like Wall-E and less like Terminator.
I yes, I think that that's definitely a good call. I mean, they're both equally not good in certain ways, but
Maybe not. Maybe I should actually see the Wall-E movie before I recommend it as our future dystopian, whatever.
everyone just thinks the future and the past. It's interesting. It's an interesting thing. Like we romanticize these things. Like, what's wrong with now?
Now is
Now is awesome.
Yeah, I think so. Speaking of the Zen of physics and technology, once again, we may not have we accomplished nothing.
Nothing. We have accomplished
Nothing.
nothing.
Yeah, we have no answers.
Nor did we set out to accomplish anything.
No, but we talked about some nerdy shit and not as much politics this time. I wanted to make sure it was more technology centered. I might have put Robert to sleep as the viewer, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, when you guys wake up, check out those trailers we got on the shorts.
Yeah, no, no,
I mean,
you
you
don't.
guys have already turned off now. Anyways, everyone's attention span's like 14.2 seconds these days.
Another great use for our show is to help you go to sleep at night.
That's right.
Yeah. Maybe we should do a warning. Do not watch this
That's
podcast while operating.
while operating heavy machinery. Well, thanks everyone for
Thanks.
watching. We'll see you next episode in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, see ya. Popcorn.
Later.